Hello guys, and welcome to this lesson about war and propaganda. The role of propaganda during World War I, that is, how the government used propaganda to enlighten but eventually bring to death thousands of young lives. I know that you have studied war and World War I better than me and a couple of months ago. However, we will focus mainly on one aspect of this war, Britain and World War I. So the role of Britain and the reaction of British people to this conflict. Let's focus then on Britain and the entry of Britain into war. We know that England and Germany have always been on friendly terms because they both rejected France and Russia dominance on Europe. However, William II's policy was unstable and, above all, it was not as prudent as Bismarck's politics. As a matter of fact, William II of Germany had a strong politics of invasion, and they tried to extend his power, the power of Germany, over the Balkan states, which meant for England and also for Russia the loss of the outlets to the Mediterranean Sea, and eventually the control of Egypt and India, because as you can see in geography, we have Britain, and Britain needs to go through the sea in order to reach Egypt and India. Without this outlet to the Mediterranean Sea, it was impossible for England to reach Egypt. Britain decided to declare war on Germany in August 1914 because Germany attacked Belgium, and Belgium was a neutral country. And this was unbearable for England, and so they decided to declare war on Germany. Be careful here, guys. War on someone. We declare war on someone. And after the first weeks of war, it was kind of evident that Britain was unprepared for war. Germany had a strong army, had all the means to fight a war, while Britain was not prepared. Britain was weaker, we can say, because it had no wars after the Napoleonic Wars, so we're talking about 19th century, and they had no modern artillery, machine guns, tanks, or gas and shells. They were not prepared. They had no idea how to deal with this problem. And also after a couple of weeks, it was evident that the so-called Blitzkrieg, la guerra lampo, the flash war, became a longer and a tiring conflict. You can imagine a nation that was not prepared for the war had to fight with a strong enemy and for a very long time. Everybody thought that the World War I would have lasted only a couple of months, but it was not so, because the conflict turned to be a longer one, and the movement war turned into a trenches war, we can say. And there was this Western Front here, full of trenches, where soldiers didn't move but stood there. They stood there a lot of time, a lot of days, waiting for the enemy to attack and waiting to defend themselves. This long war, more than 3 years had passed when eventually the United States decided to enter into the war against Germany, and they were on behalf of the Triple Entente, so on behalf, in favor of the Triple Entente, but it was only 1914. If you think of the beginning of the war, 1914, 1917, so 3 years had passed, and Britain was almost dying, collapsing with this war. But thanks to the entry of the United States of America, a first armistice between Germany and the Allies was signed on November the 11th, 1918. This date is very important because it is remembered as the Remembrance Day, è un po' come il 4 novembre da noi, diciamo. And eventually the peace treaty was signed only in Versailles in 1919. And we can say that after this long war, we had two important outcomes. These are not specifically about Britain, but they are specific of Europe. However, they are very important to underline. One outcome is the Russian Revolution, because this wind of democracy touched also the Russian society against the government and their tsars. And also the rise of dictators like Mussolini and Hitler. So these two very important outcomes are due to the end of World War I. But let's focus a little bit more on Britain and on the reaction of British people to the beginning of the war. We can say that at the beginning of the 20th century, Britain in general, but all European countries, were feeling a common sense of patriotism and national consciousness. So this idea of feeling one country was very strong into British population. And when the war broke out, this is another important verb, broke out, break out, scoppiare. There were a lot of volunteers that joined the armed forces, and they were both driven by a wish of glory and adventure, but most of the times they were just feeling a genuine patriotism. They wanted to belong to their country and to show the love to their country in this way. And we have two pictures here that are very important, very nice. The picture on the left is the 4th of August, if I'm not wrong, 4th of August 1914. This is Buckingham Palace, and these are the crowds around Buckingham Palace during probably the news of the entry into war. And on the left, this is let's say, more personal, if we want, girls that are saying goodbye to boys, to soldiers, but as you can see, they're all very, very happy. We can, in a certain way, feel this joy to join an adventure. And as we said before, the first response to the war was a sort of romantic auto-suggestion, supported by propaganda and a deep sense of patriotic duty. This idea of patriotic duty, quindi un dovere patriottico, era un po' un'autosuggestione, a romantic autosuggestion. People were looking for adventures, for romantic adventures, not romance. C'è niente di romantico nel senso amoroso, but romantic meaning heroic in a certain way, like die like a hero. And we have an example here from Annals of Innocence and Experience that shows us a lot about this sense of patriotic duty. It must be remembered that in 1914, our conception of war was completely unreal. We managed to infuse into war a decided element of adventurous romance. War still appealed to the imagination. Ecco, questo è veramente molto importante da capire. Riuscimmo a infondere nella guerra un deciso elemento di romanticismo, di attrazione. La guerra ancora era un'attrazione per il nostro immaginario. So, young people were attracted by the war. They wanted to do something very important for their country.